What's going on, everyone? My name is Jasmine. On today's episode of the Slain Project, we're going to be talking about the suspicious death of 20-year-old Cheyenne Fox. In April 2013, she fell 24 stories, and authorities quickly ruled that she did this to herself, but her family has good reason to believe otherwise. Don't forget to check out my other videos, and if you want to see more videos on missing and murdered Indigenous people, click that subscribe button and the notification bell. Now let's get right into it.
Cheyenne Fox was born on November 19, 1992, to parents John Fox and Michelle Mainville. She was a member of the Wikwemikong First Nation on Manitoulin Island, which is located in Ontario. Cheyenne is often described as a caring and fun-loving person. Her father also said she was very brave and was not afraid of anything. She was especially close to her younger brother John Fox Jr. I will refer to him as Jonathan in this video because he shares the same name as his father. Cheyenne's grandparents on both sides were residential school survivors, and this affected the way they raised their children. Her father, John Fox, has written a book called The Fire Within, where he recounts his troubles growing up in an alcoholic home and living in foster care. As a result, he struggled with alcohol use in his adulthood. He has since sobered up and changed his life around. He was unable to testify at Canada's inquiry into MMIW because of the poor handling of the registration process. He decided to write his book because of this and to get out everything he wanted to say at the inquiry regarding his daughter and the circumstances of her suspicious death. Cheyenne's mother, Michelle, was also in foster care as a young child and was eventually returned to her family. She has spoken of being abused by a person close to her family. She was also lured into the sex trade as a young teenage girl and spent many years trying to escape before she was successful. When Cheyenne was younger, her parents split up, and Michelle has stated that when she left John, that she and her children lived in a shelter for a short time. Cheyenne and her brother would split time between their parents and were often with their father. While growing up, Cheyenne and her brother Jonathan moved around a lot with their dad. They lived all over Ontario, never really planting any deep roots. John Fox taught his children traditional values, and they often attended powwows and other traditional ceremonies. He would often find work as a counselor and try to help troubled youth. Times were sometimes hard, but John made sure his kids had everything they needed. But when Cheyenne was around 14 or 15 years old, she began drinking and doing drugs with her friends. She would sometimes not even remember coming home. And John, being the man he was, tried to get Cheyenne the help she needed to remedy the situation. But she would sometimes get violent with him and he would have no choice but to call the police. This went on for a while before she was finally sent to treatment for 6 months. Around this time, her dad was in a new relationship with his soon-to-be wife. When Cheyenne completed treatment, she was to stay with her dad and his girlfriend. They attended many powwows that summer, and Cheyenne met a boy from Shegwianda located on Manitoulin Island near her First Nation. John gave her permission to stay with this boy and his family on the island for a while. Within a few months, she became pregnant with her son. Cheyenne's mother, Michelle, was staying in Ottawa at the time, and she moved there with her just before she gave birth to her son, Xavier. This was sometime in 2009, and Cheyenne would have been about 16 at the time. Cheyenne's father, John, has stated his daughter was first forced into the sex trade in Ottawa, but I am unsure if this is the exact time frame this happened. Her mother, Michelle, has also said that Cheyenne would tell her about her boyfriend, who would buy her clothes, gifts, and get her nails done. Michelle warned her about these type of men because she had experience dealing with these type of people when she was exploited in her younger years. Cheyenne said that her new boyfriend loved her and everything was fine. Her family tried their best to warn her about life's dangers. Being a young Indigenous woman in the big city left Cheyenne vulnerable against anyone who wanted to exploit her for their personal gain. She had little money and resources at hand and was an easy target. Traffickers use alcohol, drugs, physical harm, and even threats against their victims' families to keep them in line. And even though most would like to leave the situation, they feel as if they can't and it would be unsafe for them to do so. Sometime after this, Cheyenne moved back in with her dad. He was living in Ajax, Ontario. Cheyenne and her dad would get into a huge fight, and she left with the baby to go stay with his father on Manitoulin Island. The baby's father and his parents drove over to Ajax to pick them up. When Cheyenne was around 18 years of age, she would separate from Xavier's dad for good. Her son would remain in the care of his dad and continue to stay with him in Cheguianda while Cheyenne moved to Toronto. She had little to no resources and had to stay in a women's shelter that specialized in caring for Indigenous women. It is important to note that shelters are not always safe. Sex traffickers sometimes associate themselves with the women who live here to try to lure them into the sex trade. Cheyenne's father, John, believes that her traffickers followed her from Ottawa to Toronto and that she was having trouble escaping their grasp. Cheyenne would eventually make up with her dad, and she began to visit him on the weekends. He was living in Pickering by this time. While visiting on the weekends, Cheyenne and her brother Jonathan would go hang out at the local bar and have drinks. On one of these weekends, Cheyenne went missing. She was able to message her brother's girlfriend and tell her that she was being held against her will in Scarborough and that she wanted her brother to come get her. Cheyenne was abducted and being held at this house, known for sex trafficking. She said a woman at the house was blocking her from leaving. The police had to be called to get Cheyenne out of the house. The police told her that the house was dangerous and not to go there anymore. She also said that other girls were being held there, but I am unsure if the police got them all out of the house or if anyone was arrested. This was referenced in her father's book, and I was unable to find any more info on this. Then on June 1st, 2012, Cheyenne was at a local bar in Toronto and started walking back to the women's shelter. She was followed by a man who attacked her in the backyard of the shelter and raped her. Although this incident was caught on the shelter's security cameras, the suspect was cleared of the rape charges in October 2015. The charges were probably dropped because Cheyenne was not around anymore in 2015, which we will get into. John moved again to Peterborough, and Cheyenne would continue her visits. They were getting along great and everything seemed normal. On Christmas Eve 2012, Cheyenne got into a fist fight with her brother Jonathan, and they both went to jail. Jonathan got out the next day, but Cheyenne had warrants and had to stay in jail for 3 months. She was released in early April 2013 and stayed with her dad for a few weeks. She desperately wanted to get into a treatment center and called persistently, but was never able to get into such a facility. She then decided she wanted to go to school to be a beautician and hopefully get a fresh start in her life. Cheyenne returned to Toronto on Sunday, April 21st, 2013, and messaged her dad when she arrived to let him know that she made it there okay. I do not know if she planned on staying at a shelter again or with friends. But while moving back to Toronto, she encountered her trafficker again. He was only referred to by his first name Ahmed in court documents, and he had her working as an escort. And it is possible she was a high-price escort due to the condo building she was found dead at. There are not any newspaper or media reports on Cheyenne's death in 2013. It was initially ruled that she took her own life, and the media typically does not report on these type of deaths. The following is pieced together from her father's book, family interviews, and by a statement from her family's attorney named Emily Hill in an article in the Toronto Star in January 2014. It is important to note that different sources list various times of the unfolding events. I used the timeline laid out by her family's attorney because it seemed like the most likely accurate source. There have never been any charges in relation to Cheyenne's death. On Thursday, April 25, 2013, Cheyenne was dispatched by her trafficker to a luxury condo building located at 80 Harrison Boulevard. On the way there at about 9 p.m., she jumped from a slow-moving taxi on Highway 401. This highway is a very busy road, and the person who witnessed her jump picked her up and called the police. Her dad believes she jumped from the taxi because she was being assaulted. She also may have been trying to prevent such an attack. This person then drove her the rest of the way to the condo, which is right off the highway and located north of Toronto in the suburb of North York. The police never responded to this call, and Cheyenne went about her business. Upon arriving at the building, Cheyenne went to unit number 2419 on the 24th floor. This apartment overlooked the 401 highway, according to real estate pictures. A second call was made to 911 just before Cheyenne fell off the balcony, sometime between 10:30 p.m. and 11 p.m. It is unclear who initiated the call. According to the family's attorney, the 911 dispatcher spoke to the male occupant, which was Cheyenne's customer and Cheyenne. The male customer said that Cheyenne was drunk and would not leave his apartment. According to this man, she jumped off the balcony soon after this call. Him and Cheyenne were the only people in the condo, and he was the only one to really witness this. In the same article that the family attorney spoke to the Toronto Sun, it is stated that a neighbor also called 911 to report that someone was dangling from a balcony. This would seem like she did not willingly jump over the edge. Cheyenne was found on the ground level of the condominium at 11:10 p.m. John Fox said he was notified the next morning of his daughter's death. They told him that she jumped at 10:30 p.m. and her death was quickly ruled a suicide by 8 a.m. the next day, with little to no investigation. John stated that he has experience working with troubled youth and that his daughter did not show any signs of wanting to take her own life. He refuses to accept this explanation. When the police informed her mother, Michelle, of her death, they plainly told her that she had died. She was shocked, and after she gathered herself up a bit, she called the police station to ask them some questions about what happened to her. The person who answered the phone at the police station asked Michelle if she knew Cheyenne was a prostitute and that she was on drugs and jumped to her death. She was upset by this comment and told them that they didn't have to say it like that, meaning in a rude and disrespectful way. The person then said, "It is what it is," and hung up the phone. Coroner Dr. Dirk Hewer has stated the cause of death is undetermined. There were notable impact trauma injuries, and the police say that there was no evidence of criminal activity. But her family is wondering why the police never responded to the first 911 call from the concerned citizen who witnessed her jump from the taxi. They also wonder why they never quickly responded to the domestic violence call received from the condo. And why was it quickly concluded that she took her own life? In June 2013, John Fox met with the Toronto police and they played him the 911 call from the condo the night Cheyenne died. John has refused to listen to this tape. It would be too painful for him to do so. He was told that the police were going to give the man with Cheyenne that night a lie detector test, but this never happened because the police said the man was too traumatized to do the test. This person was eventually put on trial for the rape of Cheyenne, but was found not guilty. The judge simply said there was not enough evidence, and this was probably because of her occupation. During another meeting with Toronto police, a commander admitted that one of his officers did speak harshly to Cheyenne's mother and apologized for their actions. But then they said that the file on her death would be closed because there was no crime committed. John also asked for the exact location where her body was found so that he could have a ceremony there. He was told that they would not show him and that if he went to the building he would be arrested for trespassing. But why would they say this to a grieving father? Could the exact spot indicate she was shoved or thrown over instead of just leaping off the balcony? It is very disrespectful to me that they would deny him the honor of doing his ceremony and blessing the site. John Fox also tried to meet with the young woman who was with Cheyenne the day she died. She was extremely spooked about speaking with him, and her traffickers followed her to the spot where she met with him. John believes that his daughter was beaten by her customer and thrown over the balcony. I also do think this could be possible. Cheyenne might have not wanted to leave because perhaps she was not paid for her services, She might not have wanted to get in trouble with her pimp. John tried to get someone held liable for her death. He wanted some sort of justice because the person he believed harmed her got away scot-free. He attempted to sue the Toronto Police Service, the Attorney General of Canada, the condo owners, and the shelter where Cheyenne was raped at. None of these cases were successful, but he was able to get the statute of limitations overturned for sexual assault claims. An amendment was made to Bill 132, which is the Sexual Violence and Harassment Action Plan. There are now no time limits on reporting assaults, and it does not matter how long ago the assault occurred. We may never know what really happened to Cheyenne Fox. Her son was only 3 years old when she tragically passed away. He is just one of many countless children left motherless by the violent epidemic of MMIW. She was brought home and laid to rest on Manitoulin Island. Her family continues to fight for the truth.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you knew Cheyenne, please share any memories of her, and I will see you in my next video.